what we can do now, we can use now this makes thing. We can use this. That's an array. So which means it has our index of method on it, which basically is gonna search for something in that array and give us what's the position. So I'm gonna copy that, paste it here, and let's just put this on top and assign a variable to it. So we'll say index make, or make index, maybe index should be that. So copy, paste, and let's try to log it out. So save. Now I'm going to test this out. So if I go and select this, let's see what we get. So we get 3. So, and the reason it's 3 is that in arrays, everything starts from 0. So it says this brand that you've selected is 0, 1, 2, 3 is the third element in this particular array. If I go back and select here, let's say this one, if I go back and look at my log, see it says 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. So to convert this to basically the match function results in sheets, I'm gonna have to put 6 instead of 5 because it's not starting from 0 in sheets, it's starting from 1, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna take this index that I'm already getting and then just add 1 to it, and that index is gonna give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the number is. So as a result of this make index, so let's just put that make index right here, so I don't have to look at the logs. So if I just take this off, if I go and select BMW, see it says 2. If I do Toyota, it says 1. If I do this one, it says 6. And this will work wherever I am. So 3, BMW, 2, perfect. So that gives us the index, which gives us whichever index is that item in. Now, based on that, what do I need this index for? Basically, the reason I need this index is that I'm going to say, well, if it's the index is 2, so it's BMW, then I'm going to have to use the values from the second column to assign data validation to that other thing. Otherwise, do whatever number it ends up being. So that's good. Let's see if I've missed anything here. So that's good. I'm getting the index. Now the second thing I'm gonna have to do is assign my validation. So how do we assign data validation? So to assign data validation, it's kind of gonna be like a 2-step process. The first step is gonna be to create the rule of the validation, and the second step is gonna be to assign that rule of validation to that cell that's located to the right of us. So let's first of all create that rule of validation. I don't need this anymore because we know already what it's doing. So let's create our validation rule. So if I go to my spreadsheet app and I have new data validation on that, and let's see what methods we had here. Required equals, not equal to, before and after. We don't want the formula, which is like a true or false type of thing. Now what we want to do is we want to assign validation that is a range. Value in range. So that's what we're looking for. So it has to do this value in range method. Although we could have used this value in list, I guess, as well. I'm kind of not sure which one I should do. So I guess I'll do value in range. That's fine. Could make it work with both. So require value in range, right? And basically here I have to do the range that I have to select for that validation. Now that range is gonna come from my data spreadsheet. So let's just create first a variable. We'll call it validation range equals 2, and that validation is going to come from our data spreadsheet, and we're going to get range from that spreadsheet. And that's going to be, again, this full reference. So it's going to start from the third row. The column that we're going to have to choose is going to be the index column, which is whatever column we find. Now, the number of rows, well, it has to pretty much just go all the way down, which means instead of doing this data get last column thing, we're going to do data get last row. So cut that, number of rows, and finally, the number of columns is going to be, well, I don't need that. I should just probably skip that. So it's just going to be that column. So there we go. That's going to be the range. Now we're going to take that range and assign it for our data validation. And that's going to be our this. And I think we have to do the build method to make this work, if I remember their documentation right. So let's assign a variable validation rule to this. That's going to be our validation rule that we're creating in here. And finally, what we have to do, we'll have to take that validation rule and assign it to this cell that's located right on the right to the cell that we're in. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do it using the offset method. How do I get the offset method? So I have to do it from the active cell, but since the autocomplete doesn't work, I'm just going to have to just test it out on here first. So get active cell dot offset. So the offset, the row offset, and the column offset. So from the cell that you're in, which is your active cell, we want to offset. We want to offset by how many rows from the cell. So we want to put it over here, right? So as far as the rows, it stays in the same row. So we need 0 row offset, and we need to go 1 to the right. So it's going to be 1 column offset. That's going to be our offset. Now, instead of doing in this place, we're going to take our active cell, and we're going to offset from our active cell 0 rows and 1 column going to the right. So what we're going to do to that cell, we're going to, well, again, I'm going to have to look at this to see what it's supposed to be. So get offset 0 and 1. So let's see what are the methods that we have on this. So we should have something like there's no validation, set validation. Oh, it said data validation. It's not set validation. Interesting. So we need to set data validation rule. So that's going to be our set data validation rule. So, and that rule, I don't think we have to do anything else. That rule is going to be basically the rule that we've created before. So I don't know why I'm doing this here. It should be below. We're going to do set our data validation. I'm going to get rid of this, get rid of this, and semicolon, and the validation rule is going to be this validation rule that we made before. So I'm going to save that. Now I don't need this. That was my test. I'll just keep it as a comment for now. Now let's see how this works out. That might be pretty much what we need to do to make this happen. So save this, go back and go here. Now I'm going to do Toyota. Now see, this drop down showed up. Now I'm getting all Toyota brands. Now I go here and do Audi. So I go here, I'm getting all these makes. Now I go here and do, I don't know, whatever, BMW. I should get all BMW makes over here. So that's pretty nice. The only problem that I think we might have here is, what if we search for something that's not really in the list, right? Well, it's invalid data validation. That's good. But also we probably want to handle those cases in this tab. Also the other case, what if it's blank, right? So what do we want to do in those cases if this is blank? Now we could just say this is fine, right? This just pretty much works. So it just leaves whatever was in there, and if you type something over, it's still gonna leave whatever's in there until you change this to something that should be in that list, and then you should just have that particular item from the list. Now a couple of things that I want to do, see, when I select this, this gets red. Now I kind of like this the way it is. It has its own way of using it. I don't need this. So at this point we could just say it's done and it's doing what it's supposed to do, and we're happy with this result. Pretty much. But I'm gonna do a couple of changes to this. So my changes are gonna be, if I do something here that I'm not able to find here in the list, I want to clean this up and not have it show up. If I remove this and it's blank, I also want to clean this up so there's nothing in here. So in that way, I'll force that if you select this, you have to pick something that's on a list. Also, when I'm selecting something, if there is something in there, probably I want to clean it up first before I have the validation applied, so they choose something. So I don't want the old value to sit in there. So a few different checks I may have to do to get this done. So the first check I'm going to do, if the cell is blank, I want to go and make this blank as well. So I'm gonna have to make some changes here. So maybe we'll do some, maybe I should do like case, but I'm gonna handle this with ifs. That should get us the makes. This gets me the index. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. So okay, so that's our if statement. So the first if statement I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make sure the cell isn't blank. So let's see, is there a method? There is. If it's blank, then what we want to do, want to go to our active cell offset -1 and set the value to nothing, basically a blank. It's gonna be this. So, and I'm starting to think that we should set it to blank anyways in all cases, because if we're selecting something from the list, then we should set it to blank so they can use the data validation to take care of it, which means I don't have to put this inside of this if function. I can just clean it up first. So first we're gonna set it to blank. We could also just probably clear contents instead of, let's do it the right way. We're gonna clear content from that particular cell to the right first, and then we're gonna do the rest. So let's just see how this works for right now. So save this, go back. Okay, so if we go here and set to this, we're gonna select that. Now if this is blank, see, that clears it. Still leaves the data validation, which probably shouldn't be there. So what if we just do, instead of clear content, just clear? Does clear remove data validation too or not? That's what I'm curious about. So that's that. Let's remove this. Go back. Apparently it does not remove data validation. So in that case, I guess we'll do clear. Oh, there's clear data validation. Look at that. That's nice. Validations. Interesting. Anyway, so for now, clear contents. Clear data validations. And that gives you a range. Interesting. So what if I do this? Can I just chain them? So let's try that. MW, we should have all of those. That's nice. Let's just clean this. Great. That drop down is gone. So now I go back, do this. It's great. So we could even possibly just do another way to apply data validation so you can't put anything in there, but I'm not gonna go that far. So if you want, you can take it to the next level with your own script. Just add a couple of lines. It should work that way. So there we go. So that cleans it up. Now the next problem I need to handle is when somebody types something here, even though they're not allowed to do that. It's gonna just run it and it's gonna fail right now, which is kind of fine. Now I'm still curious what happens when we say we select something, then we type something over. So that still cleans it up because it still gets to the line that clears the validation. But then we do this other stuff. Didn't need that indentation. So what I'm going to do, however, is check what index value do I get when it's not available. So let's just do a log. See what's the index when we type something that's not in the list. So could not connect. Okay, so that's not our problem. Getting back here. So I'm typing this. I'm getting this. Now I'm typing some value over it. Now let's see what we get in our logs. So it returns 0 when it's not able to find anything, which is weird because 0 should also be the first item, shouldn't it? Hold on. Oh, so it's actually returning 0 because we're adding 1. which means it's returning a -1 as a result. Okay, so basically this make index, if it's 0, we didn't find it. That makes sense? All right, so now we can use that in our advantage and say, well, if that make index equals 0, only in that case we want to run, well, maybe we should say if not equals to 0, not equals to 0, but sorry that I have this thing of getting this alignments right. I really don't like this editor they have. But anyway, so we're gonna say if it does not equal to 0, then we want to do this, because if it's 0, then we're fine. So it wasn't able to find it. So let's go and check this. So if it's blank, there's nothing. We select BMW, we have our models. If we go and type over something that shouldn't be there, it still cleans it up, but it shouldn't run the rest of the code. It's good. Now if we go and select something again, that gives us the drop down of different things. Just test this. And that works just fine. So that would be our validation list. So let's see. There we have it. That should work. So now we have our validation lists, drop down, and now you can have the whole column. And this should work with new additions just dynamically. So if I decide I'm adding a new brand, so let's say, what are we adding? I don't know. Okay. Just type something that's the same thing as this pretty much, but it's good enough. So I don't know. So let's just type some things here, and let's also just add one more to one of this. Other brands, so we see this works. So now we should have this new option, and we should see these and this as well. So I'm gonna go back here, check it out. So there we go. So there are options, and if I go back and select, I hate how this drop downs work in this sheets, but we can't change that for the time being. There we are. So that's our options. So everything works without changing a thing. So we can just add new brands, new models, and it will just work with no issues. Now, the only possible changes you might want to do to this, maybe put this list tab name in like a variable on top. And again, some things could be made more user-friendly for somebody trying to use the script, but that should take care of the overall. So that's how you can make dynamic drop-downs. All right, I think that's enough for all the drop-down videos, and this should be a nice addition to AppScripts as well. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.